On Friday, at the Toronto International Film Festival, Leonardo DiCaprio will be debuting a new movie that he stars in. As far as I know, helped write and produce and all kinds of cool stuff. And it's an amazing movie. I've seen it. I've participated in a very small way in the making of it, and I will be there. We're going to do a Q&A after the meeting or after the screening, and I'll be apparently moderating that because they're flying me out there tomorrow. So Richard Escow will be filling in for me tomorrow and Friday, and I'll be doing the first hour tomorrow, and then Richard will be picking up the second and third. But in that movie, Leo DiCaprio goes to meet with Pope Francis, and they talk about the climate. I mean, he goes all over the world. I mean, it's like a Michael Moore kind of movie, where he's off in search of what's going on, and he's, on top of Greenland with Jason Box, and watching the melt, and he's up in the Arctic, with Native American communities, and it's an amazing movie, and I'm assuming it's going to be in theatrical release in the next couple of weeks. But apropos of that, Pope Francis just came out and said that harming the environment should be a sin. This is his phrase. Harming the environment should be a sin. ScienceWorldReport.com has a report on this, a headline of the same title. Pope Francis in a press conference on Thursday in Rome that would have been, oh, wait a minute, what's the date on this? September 6th. Okay, so this was last Thursday. Pope Francis said in a press conference on Thursday in Rome for the Catholic Church's World Day of Prayer for the Care of Creation, he said, "We have an ecological debt. Humanity has an ecological debt to the planet." IFL Science reported that the Pope has joined the debate on climate change and showed great concern for the future of the environment. Currently, it's clear, they write at the Science World Report, that NASA scientists are not the only ones worried about the issue. According to Pope Francis, humans are, quote, participants in a system that has imposed the mentality of profit at any price, with no concern for social exclusion or the destruction of nature. In other words, unregulated capitalism, the stuff that Gary Johnson promotes, the whole libertarian thing, just let the billionaires run everything. No more regulation for capitalism, no more EPA, no more banking regulations. How dare we restrain the banksters? This is Gary Johnson's whole shtick, right? It's the Libertarian Party thing, is completely deregulate everything. Let them dump all the poison they want into the lakes and rivers and air. No problem. They'll be protected by their need for a good reputation. This is, honest to God, this is the libertarian theology that Gary Johnson and Bill Weld are out there promoting, that the way that you achieve a utopian society is by shaming people or suing people. These are the two ways that libertarians say that their ideology will work. Now, of course, libertarian ideology has never worked anywhere in the world. And when Gary Johnson was governor of New Mexico, he tried to privatize all the prisons. He succeeded in privatizing about half of them, and things went so bad that they had to export their prisoners to federal prisons because the private prisons were so poorly run, because they were run for a buck rather than for the purpose of, incarceration and rehabilitation. So the Pope, speaking out against Gary Johnson and Donald Trump's ideologies, the theology of the Libertarian Party and the Republican Party, and the Republican Party is rapidly moving in the direction of libertarians, as the Libertarian Koch brothers and other wealthy libertarians, some Wall Street libertarians, some Silicon Valley libertarians, pouring money into Gary Johnson's campaign, pouring money into the Republican Party, pouring money into Republican candidates who, the so-called Freedom Caucus, right? They are all basically spitting in the face of the Pope. Because the Pope is saying, no, wait a minute. Unregulated capitalism, it destroys the lives of the poor, and it's destroying our planet. There's something fundamentally wrong with this. In fact, the Pope added, the poor and the refugee crisis victims are the ones suffering the adverse effects of climate change, even though they're the least responsible for it. Got an email this morning from a friend of mine in Tunisia who says that they're experiencing a drought now. There's more food shortages, unemployment's back up. It's back to where it was when the revolution happened. Not a good thing. And this is happening all over the world. We're seeing 1,000-year climate events here in the United States. We're seeing the melting of the Arctic. If you go to arctic-news.blogspot.com, you can see how the Arctic sea ice extent is the lowest it's ever been. This year may not be record-breaking, but it's going to be damn close to it, and last year certainly was, so next year certainly will be. Because we are nuking our planet. We're destroying our planet. We're ruining our planet. Pope Francis talked about the 7 works of mercy that Christians should perform. And he said we have to reflect on society's apparent lack of concern for the destruction of nature. I don't think it's society's lack of concern. I think it's the lack of concern of the fossil fuel billionaires. Very simply. They figure, they've got enough money, they can build the Fortress of Solitude someplace and avoid mass extinctions and things. Gary Johnson was actually ran that thing out in Arizona where the Biosphere 1 and Biosphere 2. Gary Johnson actually ran that for a while before he ran for governor of New Mexico. It fell apart. It got overrun by cockroaches. I mean, he didn't run it very well. He is a libertarian after all. They don't believe in running things well. Things just happen magically in the libertarian world, right? But I think that I wonder if this was an experiment being done for the billionaires to determine if it's possible to create a Fortress of Solitude kind of environment. If you dig deep enough and you build an underground city and you figure out a way to duct sunlight down to it, or just gather electricity on the surface from sunlight, or for that matter, from below you using geothermal energy, and use that to power it, and can you create artificial light that will grow things? Can you have your own food and water purification and septic systems and things? Is it possible to have a world contained in a world that's dying, a world that works? I mean, that was essentially the question of Biosphere that Gary Johnson used to run. Is it possible that somebody, if they're rich enough, can avoid the ravages of climate change, of ecological disaster? I think the answer is no, and I think that the repeated failures of that Biosphere experiment demonstrate that the answer is no. The Earth is too large, too complex. Biological systems were not machines. But don't tell that to Gary Johnson. Anyhow, the Pope, he said we should not think that our efforts, even our small gestures, don't matter. He said ecological virtue can be infectious. He supports the Paris Climate Agreement. He's now giving daily tips on helping the environment. And the president of the Vatican's Council for Peace and Justice, Cardinal Peter Turkson, said, quote, "The first step is to humbly acknowledge the harm we are doing to the earth through pollution, the scandalous destruction of Earth's ecosystems and loss of biodiversity, and the specter of climate change." And he also added that when we hurt the earth, we hurt the poor. So here now, this is remarkable because, you recall during Galileo, the church and science were like on opposite sides with regard to, birth control. The church and science on opposite sides with regard to evolution. But now with climate change?
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
The church and science are on exactly the same page. The church, in this case being the Catholic Church, obviously. We'll be back.